We are starting. Welcome to the Somerville Job Creation and Retention Trust meeting of May 9th, 2024. My name is Annika Van Eden, and I am the Managing Trustee of the Job Creation and Retention Trust. And I call this meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed into law a supplemental budget bill which extends the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. This extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location, and to provide, quote, adequate alternative, quote, access to remote meetings. This session will be recorded and will be a public record. I will now ask the board members to confirm they are in attendance in alphabetical order. Thomas Bent.
Present.
Vicky Coates.
Present.
Silvana Dinka.
Present.
Jim Hetchy.
Present.
Wilfred Mba. Rachel Nick Carney.
Present.
Annika Van Eden. Present. Rand Wilson. We have a quorum. I will now ask city staff to present a few house rules about using the technology. Take it away, William.
Thanks, Annika. Sorry I'm in partial shadow, but I promise it's actually me and not an imposter. So as you all know, my name is William Blackmer, and I'm the Workforce Development Coordinator and serve as staff to the Job Creation and Retention Trust. When agenda items are being presented, presentation materials received ahead of time will be displayed on the screen. If the chair asks for public comment, please use the raise hand function. If you would like to speak, you will be unmuted one by one and given 2 minutes to speak. Trust members, all votes must be roll call votes with a motion and a second. The chair will call on each board member for a yes/no vote in alphabetical order. And then my last reminder is just that any comments typed into the chat box will be a part of the public record in accordance with the open meeting law. And one-to-one chat has been disabled on this webinar in order to comply with those public records laws as well. So I'll pass it back to Annika for the first item on the agenda.
Thanks, William. So our first item on the agenda is reviewing and approving the meeting minutes from April 9th. The meeting minutes were all supplied to folks in the prep email. I want to see if there are any edits or revisions to be made before approval. If not, I will entertain a motion to approve. Oh, it's William.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. A motion to approve the minutes from April 9th on the floor. I will now ask the board members to vote if you approve the minutes. Tom Bent.
Yes.
Vicky Coates.
Yes.
Silvana Dinka.
Yes.
Jim Hatchie.
Yes.
Rachel Ned Carney.
Yes.
Annika Van Eden. Yes. All right. Fully passes. Minutes are approved. So as you can see from our agenda, what we're doing today is we are going to, could you go down a little bit more, William? We're going to do our typical reviewing of linkage fees. We're then going to have a overview of labor market information. And then we're going to have a strategy conversation, thinking about the amount of money we have in hand, the amount of money we're going to have at the end of the year, the amount of money forecasted to come in, looking at the priorities that we have that were vetted by the public forum last year, and spending some time as a group putting some numbers on each of those activities that we've viewed as priorities and voted on as priorities and gotten feedback or priorities, so that we have a board can have a strategic conversation about where we want to go, not just this year, but thinking about the balance of hold and spend over the next couple of years. That's to orient us for our time together. And I will pass it back to William to talk about the linkage fee status.
Thanks, Annika, and I just wanted to note that Rand has joined the meeting, so welcome, Rand. So I will pull up on my screen the latest, which does not have any new incoming fees since our last meeting. But give me 1 second and I'll just
Hey, William.
remind us.
Just to
Yeah.
jump in, I'm not seeing Rand in the participant list.
Oh,
Is he Jill Courier?
no, I saw his name. Let me check.
Oh, now I see his name. And I see a square. Hey, Rand, welcome.
Apologies for being late, and I'm gonna have to leave at 7:30.
Thanks for joining. And noted, William is about to go through the linkage. Onward, William.
Great. Are you able to see the chart? Great. So as I was saying, there aren't any new fees that have arrived in the last month. So the trust still has that approximate 1.1 million that has not been committed. We'll be talking a little bit more in the meeting about the projections of what still might come in. We are still expecting money to come in the latter half of this year. And as Annika mentioned, talking about how much the trust might be comfortable committing to the 2024 priorities. So I will, I'll move us to the next item unless there's any questions. Annika, would you like me to pull up the LMI stuff and just dive right into it?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be great.
All right, so as we talked about a couple of meetings ago, it would be helpful to understand, get an update on labor market information, to understand kind of what's been changing, what's been evolving as we've moved out of the pandemic. So I'm gonna go ahead and share a PowerPoint slide on my screen. And the majority of this presentation was put together by Mass Hire Metro North Workforce Board. And then I've also added a slide to the end, which is reflecting on the state workforce agenda, which was also released this spring. So just to talk a little bit about the parallels there. So going through the slide, we have labor market information, and then just for reference, the data in this presentation that talks about jobs is talking about job postings, so records of jobs being posted, and there are numbers that are looking at Somerville specifically, and then also the Metro North Workforce Development Area, which is 17 cities north of Boston, including Somerville, Cambridge, Medford, Malden, Everett, etc. And as always, I just encourage the board to kind of view labor market information with a grain of salt. Sometimes there's things in there that don't entirely track, and we're wondering how certain data might have appeared, but overall it's giving us a pretty good indication of where things are at. So on this first slide, you can see that the unemployment rate for both Somerville and the Metro North area were lower than the Massachusetts average as of February 2024, and that continued into March of 2024 as well. And looking at reasons for individuals not working, a lot of individuals that are not in the labor force or not working are retired, of course, but then some of the other common reasons for unemployment of that 3 or so percent are illness and disability, individuals that have been laid off or had business closure, individuals that are out of work because of necessity to care for children or elders, and also individuals citing transportation barriers. This next slide shows both the number of job openings and also the number of unemployed individuals month by month up until January of 2024. So we can see that the trend continues, that the number of job openings is greatly outnumbering the number of unemployed individuals. However, those lines are potentially getting a little bit closer in the most recent couple of months.
What a great time in America.
Looking at top employers, both in Somerville and the workforce development area, healthcare, education, including higher education, government, and professional and technical services are dominating job postings in both Somerville and the workforce development area. And among these job postings over the last 14 or so months, the top occupations are registered nurses, or sorry, I think I went ahead. Oh no. Yeah, in industries, I think I mentioned this. So for the unique job posting, top occupations are registered nurse, retail, sales workers, software developers, customer representatives, and managers across several industries. You can see pretty similar results from the metro area as well.
What is
And
that
then-
telling you, William? Job postings. That's could be a reflection of how aggressive or how much money an employer has to spend. Has nothing to do with the openings per se. I mean, it's a pretty crude measurement, in my opinion.
Okay, we can get to
Oh.
that in a moment. This is just a breakdown a little bit of going back of the top skills that are mentioned, or sorry, the top certifications that are mentioned in job postings. We see driver's license, registered nurse, also licensed practical nurse, BLS, first aid, and CPR. So health-related certifications, commercial driver's license as some of the top certifications that are mentioned in the job postings. And then again, in terms of the skills, we see a lot of broad skills here, but project management, marketing, merchandising, finance are some of the top skills. And then just to wrap up the information from the workforce board. This shows the educational requirements that were listed for job postings in Somerville and the Metro North area. Of those positions that are listing educational requirements, the most common ed requirement was a bachelor's degree. It's important to keep in mind that no education listed does not mean that there isn't an educational requirement or that a high school diploma is not necessary. So just keep that in mind that a lot of those no education listed probably would be dispersed throughout the other columns. And then lastly, for the 2024 Massachusetts Workforce Agenda that was recently released, some of the key takeaways that I had from reviewing the agenda were that professional and technical services and healthcare and social assistance were two priority industries that were mentioned for Greater Boston. So that includes Somerville, and then also that the agenda additionally recommends connecting residents to trainings and to employers in industries that are growing statewide. So that includes some of the same categories as Greater Boston, but also includes advanced manufacturing, life sciences, and clean energy.
Great to see advanced manufacturing on there. That is a really positive development.
Yeah, so I'm happy to take questions or go back through the slides, but I'm hoping that this will help inform the trust as we talk later in the meeting about the investment priorities.
Thanks, William, for the slides from our friends over at the Workforce Board and for summarizing the state's workforce agenda in this last slide. Does anyone have any questions or other initial comments?
Did we want to address Rand's question about the job postings? Do you know the source of those job postings, William? I'm assuming it's more of maybe a public system or something where a lot of employers probably would be posting on. It's not based on their marketing strategies or capabilities.
There was a source at the bottom of the slide.
Okay.
I can't remember it, but it was like Indeed or something like that, you know, one of these. Lightcast.
Yeah, Lightcast is the source of the data, and I mean it's valid that probably some smaller organizations may not be caught through that, but I think that's drawing from multiple job posting sites.
Yeah, Lightcast is a pretty well-known national labor market information data crunching group.
Yeah, so they like pull from job postings online and then like clean it up and put it as a data source that they share with the workforce boards and others. Rachel, I see you have a hand up.
We'll see if my system will let me talk. The one thought I had there's like our small business community is probably not captured in there, right? Because if you're posting a sign in the window and then you get a walk by traffic and you are able to hire someone, you know, very directly, that might not be, that may not make it to the internet. And therefore to be captured in the keyword searches that this is able to do.
Where is Liberty Mutual located?
They're in Boston, right?
Yeah, that's the
I've
one
never-
that's stumped me on this, and it actually came up on last year's list as well, because they don't have a specific Somerville location, so I don't know if it's because jobs are being tagged, including the city of Somerville. I don't know the kind of inner workings of the data that Mass Hire is seeing, but that one definitely stands out to me as an
Yeah.
odd one.
And where's Form Labs?
So,
Yeah, Formlabs is in Boynton, close to Boynton Yards,
Is it
behind
biotech?
Target.
Is it biotech?
They're 3D printing.
Oh, 3D printing, okay.
Tom, you have a comment or question?
I just wanted to agree with Rachel. I think what I'm not seeing here is, so you have small businesses that are hiring. And just driving through the city, you actually see a lot of these help wanted signs, for these smaller places. Also, what I'm surprised to see, and I don't know if it's a category, but would be construction. Now, it is slow out there right now, but there's still a need, so I don't see where that's in either one of these lists. And the other thing was, which I was glad to see the advanced manufacturing, but I don't see how it ties back into the different lists that we're seeing here. So I'm not sure how they made that connection,
Yeah, I think it's because it is, so that was from the state workforce agenda, so not specifically on this data source, but that was just recognizing that it is a high growth industry across the state, but it doesn't have as strong of a presence in Metro North or Somerville as it does in the North Shore, some parts of Western Mass and other communities.
I was gonna, if I could, through you, Chair, I was gonna ask Jim Hatchie, because I know, Jim, you tie into some of this data also, don't you, for when we're looking at, what's out there as far as jobs, and how the CTE might assist or even create a new program. So I know the state gives you some information, don't they, on that?
Yeah. So we actually have to use some of these same sources to prove that there's a need. So when you start a brand new program, we have to prove to the state in our area, and we use some of these same exact sources, Tom.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if there was any others that, or the state themselves gave you any information.
No, it's all the same stuff. Like
Okay,
sometimes we even contact some of these programs to find out the more updated information to make sure we have it correct.
yeah, I knew you worked with Metro North before, yeah, I just couldn't remember how the tie-in was.
Yep.
Thanks. Vicky?
Just a reflection on the overall presentation. It does feel like, for the most part, thinking about our investments, we have been pretty on track. With the Bunker Hill Community College ESL program focusing on customer service representatives, that was on the list. Tractor drivers, CDL, and driver's license, that we have talked about in the industry, specific trainings. I do wonder if the small businesses in Somerville would be represented in the retail and the customer service representatives, if they're mostly like small retail and restaurant type businesses. So even though, their data might not show up in here, it does seem like that is a focus. The only thing that we haven't really focused on is all the healthcare industry demand. I don't think we've really funded much healthcare, so we may just want to think about that as a priority industry, given how many different healthcare jobs, skills, and demand shows up on these lists.
Thanks for sharing those comments, Vicky. And thanks for the presentation, William. I think the idea was to see what some different data sources are saying about our region. Of course, no data source is a full, just like 100% census of exactly what's happening, but the idea is to have a little bit more insight into what's going on. And before we turn to our next update, Rand, I see you raised your hand.
Well, just reiterating what I said, which is obvious but really important. This is a great time for workers. This is a great time for, catching up because of generally, we're seeing a moment in time when there's more jobs than there are job seekers, and that puts labor in the driver's seat, and something to really be happy about. It's a great moment. I've lived through a lot of times when it was the opposite. Tons of people on the bench, unemployed and suffering, and no opportunity. And here we're in a moment of great opportunity. And I'm not sure how that informs our work as a trust, but it's make hay while the sun shines, let me tell you, because this won't last forever. I don't know why people don't like Joe Biden, because you're looking at a great economy.
Thanks, Rand, for the comments. Appreciate it. And yeah, so speaking of what we will do as a trust with the current labor market and with supporting Somerville residents to access the opportunities, let's move ahead before we get to our discussion. Jen, a blast from the past. Well, she's been with us all along, but she is back on the Zooms to share some updates from Somerville Workforce Development. Jen, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Annika. It's nice to see everyone. And to your point, I'm still in the background, Annika, and that's why I'm here today. So I have been constantly updated, getting updates from William, and we're always working together on our workforce team, hearing the trust and hearing community members to chase grants. And so at the moment, we're working very closely with the director of Scale, who runs very quickly and is a great leader. And we're working on exploring CTE programming in the evenings. We're applying for some grants that are very intentionally set up, where we start out as a pilot and have a chance to test the waters, build out our administrative components, and then move on from there. Vicki, to your point, we have noticed the healthcare boom. And so we are having lots of conversations about maybe some of those pilots focus on that. And then we had a recent big win. Thank you to Jim, who's our constant thought partner, and all the colleagues on the school side. But Jim actually solidified a pilot for us that will be starting in the summertime. Mass Hire is hosting a pre-apprenticeship program. I believe it's 14 weeks, where folks get to test the waters in the different shops and get some basic job training skills. And then from there, once they make their choice, move to an apprenticeship and then long-term a job placement. There's opportunity for growth if it goes well. I was speaking with them this morning, asking permission to convey to all of you that they would love to grow if this goes well. And if there's ever a curiosity, they'd be more than happy to visit the trust and do a presentation. But Jim, do you have anything to add?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, it's a 10-week program over the summer. So we're very excited to be having it, and it's from 18 to 21-year-olds. And there'll be six weeks of classroom, and then we will be holding the hands-on portion. So we'll have 4 weeks of hands-on, 2 weeks in carpentry, 1 in plumbing, and 1 in electrical. So we're very excited to have that. We will have our CTE instructors teaching over the summer. So we're very excited for it, that the teachers see the need in the community, and that's just kind of where we're going with what we want to do. We have the middle school running, the middle school CTE programs running, and we have our regular high school. And now this is to complete that, CTE, overall CTE and advancement for the community. So we're very excited to have it, and we'd love to build it if everything works well, build it out.
It's awesome. Really, really exciting. Thanks for sharing, Jen, and thanks for adding some more details, Jim. Does anyone have any questions about this? Or Jen, did you have anything else you wanted to?
Annika, I do.
Oh yeah, Tom.
First of all, Jen and Jim, that is fantastic news. Really happy to hear that. The question I have, and I'm not sure how are you advertising this? Where are you getting that outreach for those? And I think you're hitting the right group, that 18 to, what did you say, 21? I think that's a really important group that we've talked about over the years. But how are you advertising the program, and how are you getting those young adults into it?
So our role right now, Tom, is we're just the host site. I think it's Chelsea who won the bid to do the case management piece because it's a regional program. They'll be blasting it out regionally. I haven't heard how many seats are assigned specifically to Somerville, but also I wanted to correct what I said earlier. So Jim is right. The summer program is 10 weeks. The 14-week is, I was getting ahead of myself because I was excited. They want to bring their other program, which opens up the age range. There is no cap on the age for the other program, and it's an evening program. But we're just waiting to see how this one goes.
Great. Jen, do you know if they're going to reach out to some of the, the community partners and, to try to, attract, people?
Definitely, Tom. So basically, that's a huge part of my role. So they send it to me and I blast it out.
Great. No, and I know you do a great job with that, but no, this is really exciting, great to hear it.
Thank you.
Other questions? Great. Well, thank you for sharing that update, Jen. That's really helpful to know that is happening. We look forward to hearing more updates as things develop. Sharing out any way we can to support outreach. All right. So now we're going to review our 2024 investment priorities, and then we'll have our strategy conversation. So William, you want to share your screen and take it away? So, Jen, want to make sure you saw Silvana and Vicky's comments in the chat.
I didn't want to interrupt, but do want to say thank you.
Let me make this a little bit larger, then we can dive into it. So this is the same chart that we look at from month to month. I just want to remind people of a couple of developments at last month's meeting and things that are moving along. So at the April meeting, the trust did hear presentations from our previous contextualized ESOL and adult basic ed grantees, so Scale and Bunker Hill, which relates back to the #1 priority for the trust for 2024. We also heard from city staff presenting on the ARPA-funded post-secondary success program, which correlates to the year 13 program, which is the third priority on the trust list. The second priority, of course, is the development of a workers' rights curriculum and train the trainer training. And we, I believe in the March meeting, collected that feedback on the proposed job description for that role that will be posted. And in addition to that, the trust also approved a no-cost extension for Franklin Cummings Tech to extend their clean energy and IT training for residents into 2025. I sent out an email earlier today that just highlights scholarship opportunities for the Somerville residents and more broadly for those programs. And I was at the high school yesterday and today and saw flyers all over advertising the opportunity. So that's really exciting to see. And then also worth noting is that next Monday, the 13th, will be the deadline for the mental health resilience, trauma, and trauma-informed approaches training RFP. So that is going back to our 2023 list, and then also was, I believe, item 8 on this year's list. So that period will be closing, and we're looking forward to seeing what proposals we get, and then potentially in one of the upcoming meetings, potentially having a recommendation so that we could have that program hopefully getting off the ground in the summer or fall. So those are just some updates on the 2024 investment priorities. And we'll be talking a little bit more about these priorities because they're also referenced on the obligation sheet that we'll go to in a moment. But let's pause for any questions here, and then we can transition into that activity.
Vicky, I see your question.
Great, thanks. William, thinking forward to that conversation we're going to have about how much to invest in 2024, how much to invest in 2025, it would be helpful to know how much we spent on Scale and Bunker Hill Community College in the last grant cycle, and also how much we think the that year 13 advising, priority number 3, how much that would cost to continue beyond its expiration date of, I believe, at the end of this year when the ARPA money expires. So I don't know if you need to look that up or if you know it off the top of your head, but I wanted to preview that.
Vicky, that's a great segue to the spreadsheet that we sent you all. And we can now shift over to this conversation.
Sure, let me bring that up.
Thank you. So as we've talked about, we may see a slowdown in funds in 2025. And so there's kind of 2 conversations that I want us to have that are maybe 2 parts to the same conversation. Discussing how much money we are comfortable or are looking towards obligating in 2024. As a reminder, obligating is setting aside to send out an RFP. And how much we want to hold for 2025 and subsequent years. So what we have here is a big picture summary. We currently have $1.1 million that's uncommitted. We have the potential to have $2.8 million by the end of the year. Am I saying that right, William? In total, it would be 2.8 million. Not like an additional-
Sorry, trying to find the unmute button. I actually, in looking at this, I think that it should be 3.8. So if we get every single thing that might come in 2024, then 3.8 is kind of like the high water mark. So I'll make that update on here now because that's a significant difference.
Okay, thanks. So basically we have $1 million. If everything comes through, we will have an additional 2.8 million, meaning 3.8 million coming in this year. Large amount of money. But William, if I recall correctly, we don't have a lot that we're expecting to come in 2025, or maybe nothing. Currently, I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
it's gonna be, it's looking like it will be a pretty lean year.
Okay. Thank you. So that's some context. And I think this is a good time to pause and think about this because, we started during the pandemic. Well, we started before the pandemic, and then we were doing most of our spending during the pandemic, and then over the last couple of years. And so I just think there's been a confluence of building and then not building and then the pandemic. And so if we're looking at 3.8 million coming in this year, and then maybe more things coming in 2025, but we know we have 1 million, we might have up to 3.8 million. I think it's good for us to think about what we want to do if not a lot of funds do come in 2025. So what we have here is, if William, if you could go to, we each have our own tab so we can work on this together. If we could also start with some verbal conversation to see what folks are thinking, but I want to walk us through the exercise that we're going to do. So this chart shows the priority ranking and the priority title. So it's an order of priority, voted, ESOL, training, priority number 1. The first column after that, column C, is the note on the past spending. So the Jobs Trust spent about $750,000 on priority number 1, funding Bunker Hill Community College and Scale in 2022-2023. And then column D is what is already obligated. So if we look down to priority 2, the development of a workers' rights curriculum and train-the-trainer training, it's a lot of trains in one sentence. JCRT did not spend on this in 2023. The city is hiring staff, and city's hiring staff. We gave feedback. This is something we've thought about, trying to get a sense of, once that person is hired, if there is anything that we can do to supplement their work. But that's where that is. Year 13 program, the career advising for Somerville graduates who have not yet enrolled in college. The city used ARPA funds to pilot something similar. We heard that presentation at our last meeting. The ARPA funds totaled $400,000, which covers 2 full-time success coaches and GSA stand for grant services. And a grant services agreement to Bunker Hill Community College for tuition and fees. Priority number 1, I think, or no, sorry. Priority number 4 is something that's relatively new that we talked about, or new to this list. Priority number 5, industry-specific training. So we spent $400,000 on industry-specific training on Franklin Cummings Tech, Just to Start, and Mass Cultivate TED. As a reminder, under already obligated, we have $400,000 that we have already obligated towards the Good Municipal Jobs Training Program. And we still have an active grant with Franklin Cummings Tech through November 2025. We have $250,000 that was left unspent from our 2023 RFP for industry-specific jobs trainings. So of that $400,000 in column C that went out, no, thanks, William. Of that $400,000 in column C, we have $250,000 left of it. And we have the $300,000 for a child care career advancement initiative. We may remember that there was some federal funding that was out for that. Maybe there had been some state funding. And we're waiting to see what happens with the state budget. If there's going to be kind of additional state funding related to childcare careers. So I reference all of this because there's different money in different stages. And that $1 million that we have on hand now doesn't include that money that's already obligated. So just for us to think about the money that we have. So we have under priority 6, some information about the digital literacy programming, $140,000 in ARPA funding to staff the Digital Bridge initiative and provide materials. $51,000 in ARPA funding to teach digital literacy classes through June 2024 and provide devices to students. There was this ARPA money to outfit new computer labs at the Mystic Apartments and SCC. SCC also has a full-time computer teacher through these funds. So I think then there is also going to be a regional grant for digital navigators to be placed at SCC, which we don't have the amount yet known. And then there's also a pending grant for additional digital navigators throughout the city. I'm sure William can share more information if he has more on that. On priority 8, the mental health resilience, trauma, and response training for staff, we have $100,000 obligated for the program. Under financial literacy, $230,000 in ARPA funding went to Women's Money Matters for financial literacy programming that concluded in June 2024. And lastly, on the job quality and human resources training for small business and entrepreneurs, $81,000 has been obligated. And we haven't kind of figured out how to spend that money yet. We haven't gotten proposals that line up with our goals. So that is a little bit of the context of like the money we have that we know that's been spent, the money that we've already put aside, and then we have $1 million in hand, and then we have $2.8 million coming. So I think actually, William, what we could have done is added 2 rows at the bottom here of like money to save for later. Yeah. So I'm going to pause though and work on that on the side and see if anyone has any questions about any of the past spending or already obligated, or any questions about like how much money we have or what the forecast is looking at there.
Annika, sorry, I've forgotten how to navigate Zoom and get the little hand up. We have a post-secondary success program or year 13 update. We were able to find funding for the staff until 2025.
Oh, wow. So through this next academic year or through like the end of 2025?
Until the end of June 2025.
Oh, that's exciting. Thanks, Jen. That's an awesome update. Congratulations on that grant. William, could you make the spreadsheet into edit mode, please? And then Tom, I see your hand.
Yeah, while you're doing that, on the different opera funds programs, have any of them started yet?
William, do you want me to take it?
Yeah, Jen, you probably have more information than I do on those.
They have started, Tom, and the most will be wrapping up either June or September of this year.
All right, would we be able to get feedback on the number of number of people that were enrolled in those and how well all that went, just so that we could make a decision if it's something that we want to continue on, or to see if it was successful and all that. And that would be the same probably with the year 13. Is that starting this summer too, or?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jenna.
No, they've been in motion for quite a while, Tom, but all of those reports lie with me, so I can hand it off to William.
All right, great. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Vicki?
I just want to say thank you and congratulations for putting this very complicated chart together. This is really, really super helpful. I'm sure it was took a lot of time and energy. So thank you, William and Annika and whoever else worked on this. That's all I have.
Thanks, Vicki. I'm still view only on this spreadsheet. And then I'm trying to remember from the year 13 presentation, didn't they give us the numbers of the students they'd served? I'm trying to find those slides.
I believe we're at 50 some, Annika, but the goal for the end of the year is, I believe it's 80.
Okay. Let me just look and see if I can, in my archives, if I can find this slide's presentation to share with us. So I think what I would like us to do. Oh, sorry, Jim. I was looking to the side.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, they did share some information. I think it was last meeting. But it's, Jen, thanks for finding the funds, because that is a really, really important two positions that we have up at the school. So that's awesome to hear that they found the funding. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
I just want to apologize for the tech difficulties. I'm trying to figure out how to, I thought it was editable to everyone that had the link, but I'm working on that now.
Could you make it just editable to the whole internet and then we can close it down?
Yeah, that's what I thought I had done, but let me see if I can figure it out.
No worries. Well, while you're doing that, I guess I'm interested, before we dive into thinking about specifics, I'm just interested in what folks are thinking as far as like the money that we have ahead of us, how either aggressive or conservative you're thinking about this coming year as far as obligating funds, or what other information you would want to know before you'd be able to give those thoughts. Tom?
How many of the programs that are on the list that are kind of ongoing do we want to make sure we're continuing into the next year? I think that would probably be my first priority. You know, so maybe so we could just figure that out first, see what's left, and then I was going to ask William on I think for 20. I know there's like $1 million that we have, and then there's projected like 2 point something. I was just wondering how much of that is actually solid right now? Is it buildings that are actually being built, and when they get their certificate of occupancy, they have to pay up? Or if it's stuff that's in the pipeline that we're hearing stuff is on hold. Boyant Yards, his projects are on hold, and I'm also hearing that the planning board's been actually canceling meetings because they have nothing to plan. So going, forward. So it is kind of a tricky time right now. So I guess my first question would be, which programs do we want to, we're going to need to fund next year, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, so I can talk a bit about what has been funded recently and is wrapping up or has wrapped up. Of course, we have the contextualized ESOL at the top of the list. In terms of other things that have been funded by the trust in the past, we have the Perscolas program is still working on placing individuals through June 30th. So they're just working with those that have recently graduated, but they've completed their 15 enrollments for the grant. So they're one to keep in mind that the trust has funded in the past. We also have Just to Start, who is on a similar timeline. Their grant ends, I believe, on June 1st, and they obviously already enrolled everyone, are working on job placements, and they would be looking to enroll more individuals for their program starting again in the fall. And we have Asian American Civic Association, which closed out their grant at the end of the year. We also have Mass Cultivate Ed, which just closed out their grant on May 1st. They had 10 out of 10 enrollments and 8 out of the goal of 8 placements. So these are all groups that I can look at my list and see if there's anything else, but these are all groups that we may want to consider, they would have to go through the RFP process, of course. So I guess the question there is, um, those are industry specific training programs. So do we need to, how much do we need to think about putting aside for that? And then also considering, in 2023, we put out an RFP. We have some money that was not used from that industry specific RFP. So it's pretty easy to shift that 250 and it wouldn't have a dent in our 1.1 million. So I know that was a lot of numbers and names and things. But I can we can also work on getting, like, I can give some totals for those programs of what it costs in the past, and also work on getting some presentations lined up, if it's helpful to hear that as part of the consideration.
William, that was good information on some of the different ones. And I'll just pick, Asian American or just to start. Are any of those programs going towards like an industry license or a certificate of completion that they may not, the first, say, semester that they've done this year may not be enough to get them to a completed course? So I'm thinking like apprentices, they go through a 5-year program, so a year is okay, but it doesn't help them to get to the end of where they want to go. So I didn't know if on like, I think one of them was the green tech, piece, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a certificate in that, I forget, and how many more modules do they need to get that? I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at, because that's what I'd be very interested in, is seeing somebody that sticks with the program so they get that, end license or certificate or whatever it is. And I don't know if we've ever asked the applicants if do they have it kind of laid out like that, because that'd be something, again, we're training somebody to get from A to B so that they could be a competent person in that field or whatever it is. So that would be helpful too. Because especially if you had, like, they got 8 out of 10 on one of those, right? And those people are really committed. Man, I want to see them, if they go the next level, that's what I want to see, but just so that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that would apply to Perscolis. They have certain certifications that they're working towards. So I can get more information, especially as we're getting closer to June, who are you continuing to work with that might not be retaining a job by June 30th. So we can have that kind of information. I mean, I can get that kind of information, but that's the most certificate based one I think of that's still going on. And then Franklin Cummings Tech, of course, though, they're working toward degree programs or certificates, and that program's already extended into 2025. So we don't have anyone at the moment that's about to get kind of lost halfway through their learning for that program.
Thanks.
Vicky.
I wanted to follow up on Tom's excellent second question about basically how much should we discount that $2.8 million that's supposed to be coming in between now and the end of the year? And I looked at the spreadsheet with all the dollar figures on it, and it looks like all of those projects are under construction. So we're just waiting on the second half of the funding, which is, I mean, I'd say 99% guarantee they'll come in, right? Because they're building the buildings now.
Yeah, I don't know, Rachel, if you have a moment to add a little bit on this, but yeah, you're correct, Vicky, that all of those projects they have broken ground. They've, paid their first portion to us, and they're, from my understanding, they're all pushing forward. I had one project that I moved over to the 2025 list that, we're no longer thinking, but the ones that are remaining on there, we feel pretty confident about. There's a chance that some of them might go into early 2025, but none that are like have been totally scrapped that are still in that figure.
Great.
Good news.
Mhm. Well, I think I'll share how I'm thinking about it is I feel like I would lean towards spending around $1 million and saving the 2.8, because then we could have another year
Yep.
of some of the things that we do this year, maybe a third year of some of the things we do this year, or we would have like a pretty sizable chunk if we were like, no, actually, we think we should just really hold on for like early lean time. That's where I would lean.
Yeah. I would balance that with funding the continuation of good programs to the extent possible too. So it's kind of, so you can start adding the numbers up, that'll go over $1 million. So I think we'll need to balance those two things.
Yeah. Slavana?
Hi, I needed a little clarification. I know it's about good programs and how investments we are doing. And one of the priorities has been always learning English through Scale and Bunker Hill. I couldn't make it till at the end due to an accident that my youngest one had last meeting, but I heard all the two representatives from those places, and it seems like one is cheaper than the other one. I wanted to know the difference, where exactly, let's say at the certification, because the Bunker Hill is a college and the Scale is not at the same level, but I wanted to know because sometimes the investments like that are expensive, and the number that the number of the persons that already had participated at the Scale program was a little bit higher than Bunker Hill, I think, or something like that. For me personally, it looked like a little bit expensive, and I wanted to know where was the difference, because all we are trying to do here is managing the phones and being available to have results and help people as much as we can. So that will be one thing to start saving and seeing with a different eye, and probably keep Bunker Hill for other programs that another one doesn't have it, like Scale. And I don't know if I'm clear, but it looked a little.
Yeah. And I think we talked about that at the session, so I don't immediately remember the answer, but Rachel raised your hand and maybe has some insights to share.
It's a slightly different point, but building on what we've been talking about with the various programs, is one of the things we've been seeing is that sometimes like filling the seats can take longer than we anticipate. And so one of the things we've been starting to tinker with as we think about various programs that we've got JCRT funded and otherwise is, are there ways to build in more timing flexibility in terms of like the timing of delivery, right? So like, can we look at like, with city budget, it's very clear, like we're stuck with 1 year because of the way we're 1 year cycle. But with JCRT funds, I think we might need to do a little bit more research. Like, are we allowed to sort of off the bat set a longer time frame or just more flexibility so that those programs that need a little bit more time to ramp up, or like the timing of a semester, like making that flexible, a little bit more flexible in terms of how we get folks in seats. And that's not I don't know if that's quite the same, but I also totally hear Savannah's efficiency layer.
So I think, Silvana, to your answer or to your question, we would have another opportunity to delve deeper into the details of the proposals when we release an RFP for the ESOL. And so I don't recall the difference in the structure of the programs right now, but when we review the RFP, I think we'll be able to get that clarity and decide who we want to give grants to, which makes me think of two things. One is, so we're like having a strategic conversation today. We're not going to be married to all the numbers that we come up with, but one number that I would like us to coalesce around tonight is the amount that we want to release in an RFP for the contextualized ESOL, because then we could vote on that next meeting and an RFP could go out and they could have the summer to apply for it and then be able to start their school year knowing that they're funded. So that is our top priority. I think that's something that we'd all anticipated putting an RFP out for. And so we wouldn't have a vote tonight because the vote has to be noticed. But I think it would be good for us to have a sense of what we would want to vote on next time. And so with that, I think it could be a helpful exercise for everyone to get their spreadsheets and start filling out amounts. I started filling mine out just as an example in case that is helpful. But basically go to the bottom of the sheet and find your name and then fill out under column E how much we want to obligate towards this priority in 2024, like a ballpark amount that you would want to think about. And I know we have specifics of like, we want to refund some of the programs we're already doing, things like that. But I think for this activity, we can be pretty approximate and like throw some big numbers around in a more casual way than we typically would, because we're just trying to get kind of a sense of what folks are thinking, and not even necessarily to make any decisions tonight, but just to like really try and have us look at this in a concrete way. And then I made some maths with the bottom rows, so it should automatically sum at the bottom and then subtract from 3.8 million at the bottom of each of your sheets. So how about folks start on that and let us know if you have any questions about this or any questions.
I think I'm a little confused. Would we be better off talking about each one at a time as a group? So I mean, to contextualize, are we just pulling a number out of the air? That's what I guess where I'm not kind of catching what you're looking for here.
Yeah, I would say not necessarily. Well, I mean, if you want to pull a number out of the air, but you can kind of see like how much we spent on this in the past. And if you just as an individual were to look out into the year, what you might think about allocating to each of these different priorities. And then it'll be a way for us to put that in one spot and then have a discussion. I think if we talk through each one before we fill out the spreadsheet, it's gonna be very long. But I think it'll be like, I did this and it was kind of interesting because I was like, oh yeah, I can do a lot in $1 million. And then I got down to priority 6 and I was like, oh, I'm already kind of running out. And so it's that exercise that I'm asking folks to have.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to figure out how we're going to base things on, the other thing too is understanding how successful the programs were.
Yeah, so one thing I would think about though is we're not trying to decide whether or not right now we want to refund programs. We're thinking about it more as like the categories. Like how much do we want to have out there for a specific category?
Okay.
Monica,
And the ones that you're referencing around digital literacy, for sure. Like, do we want to redo, just as an example, like $140,000 in ARPA funding to fund the Digital Bridge Initiative? I would want to learn a lot more about that before I like pulled the trigger on funding it. So that's why we're not like making a decision tonight, but we're like, okay, well, if we did think that was a good program, would we, I'm gonna put 140 in there, and then we'll like learn more about it later and decide if we actually want to put that RFP out. Jim?
Oh. Okay, thanks. That helps.
Yeah, totally. Jim?
So Jen said that year 13 is funded, right? So would we not put anything there? Is that correct?
And is this staff funded, but the $150,000 to cover their tuition and fees unfunded, or is that also funded?
The GSA is not funded, Annika, just the salary. And then also the digital bridge is the same situation. The staff is now funded until June 25.
So if we were to like recreate the year 13 program just exactly as it was, the trust would cover $150,000 for the grant services agreement to cover their tuition and fees.
That is our hope.
Okay. But we would not need to cover the $240,000 for the success coaches because that is funded through another grant.
Correct.
Awesome. Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you raising that.
And Annika, I don't know if it's helpful, but for digital literacy, so the Digital Bridge Initiative is on our team as well, and I'm helping oversee that. It seems to be the very hot ticket in town these days, and there's lots of funding being poured into that, and that's why you see that long list of things pending. Those are grants that are out now.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Silvana?
I was trying to see how to categorize those, and I don't think it's easy for me to do it right now. I need to see and think through them. That's why you just mentioned that it's you think you have a lot of money, but when you go and put the amount on each of them, it's kind of hard. So I really will need some time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna spend several meetings together voting on things over the course of time. So this isn't
Okay. Just
it's
want to
not
do the
something
right
that you're gonna be stuck to, Silvana. Like I'm not gonna reference this spreadsheet in 4 meetings and be like, you said this about. Vicky?
As I'm completing it, I'm realizing that even if we say that we want to spend money on this in 2024, it'll bleed over into 2025. So as people are thinking about timing and how this works, it's not like we're going to be spending this money and it'll be done by December of 2024. If we start spending money in 2024, some of it will roll over into 2025. So as you're kind of thinking about like when current programs end and then when their next round of funding begins, if we fund them, think about how the timing's working.
Yeah, I think I had been thinking about it as far as like obligating money, but that's a good point. It's not that it would be spent in 2024. It might go into the beginning of 2025 or beyond, even if we're obligating it this year.
One thing that stands out to me is because Annika, you started with like, what might we be comfortable with putting out an RFP for the ESOL? Like if we come to a consensus number that's a starting level, then we could always add to it potentially later is what I'm trying to get to.
Sorry, Rachel, can you say that one more time? I just like didn't hear you at the last part for my own ears. Your sound was fine. Is something we could add to it when?
Yeah, so what I'm looking towards is like, is there a level that we all agree to? Like, does everyone say like threshold level is 400,000 or 500 or 600? And then we can put out that RFP, and then maybe if we come to the conclusion that we want to supplement that for like the spring semester, that maybe there's another obligation that happens in December so that there's like money out there that can start for the academic year and then be added for the next semester, if that makes sense.
For the ESOL one?
Correct.
Oh, that's helpful. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and a little bit of part of why I wanted to do this is for us to get us. Oh no, my cat just erased like 2 things. Okay, I fixed it. Let the record reflect. It's fixed. Sorry, Rachel.
Journey.
You just walked in for that keyboard and deleted something.
Of course.
That's something we cared about. Yeah, I think part of this was like also to get a sense of where folks' heads are as far as the spending. Since like previously we've been doing kind of like one project at a time. And I didn't want us to get kind of to the end of the year and be like, oh, we spent $3 million and what are we gonna do next year? So that's also part of why I wanted us to, or if we did do that, and I wanted to make sure it was because we were all on the same page. We were like, yes, we've got to spend $3 million this year. Jim?
One more clarifying question, if I could, please.
Of course.
So on priority 5, would we not put anything there because it's already obligated to 400?
I mean, I think that's a question. I think that's like a part of the board question because like I look at it and I see that we have like 400 for the job training program, 250 also for our industry specific, so that's 650, and then $300,000 for a specific. So we have like almost $1 million already obligated towards industry specific. So I probably wouldn't put another RFP out for an industry specific or obligate anything for it this year.
I just want to clarify though that the 250 like
Yeah.
is kind of in a similar place in a way to the 300,000 in that the RFP was put out, but then we didn't get responses to spend it. So the board would need to decide whether is that 250 still something that they want to have put out again? Do they want to augment that amount, or is the decision that the 250 is no longer needed there? Like, this is one of the parts we don't have like a perfect process for yet. Is just kind of when we don't get enough responses to the RFP, what happens with that money? Because we know that there's likely a need. Maybe things just didn't line up. So one example of this would be the 400,000 that went out in 2023. We had Perscolis that started a grant in 2022. So they didn't apply in 2023 because they had something that was going to cover them through. And now here they are about to end their grant. And then on the flip side, Franklin Cummings Tech might not apply if we put something out this year because they're continuing into 2025. So I know it's a confusing puzzle, but it's important to think about, you know, the amounts that are already obligated that we haven't, I mean, if we haven't put it out at all yet, like the good municipal jobs, that's kind of different. But the 250, the 300, going down the list to even the 81,000 for the last priority. I mean, we're talking about over like $700,000 there that it's important to consider, you know, what the future of that might be. And I don't know the perfect process for that.
Well, I think that lends a little bit to Tom's point, right? Is there, you know, as you mentioned, that one company, is there, you know, do we build off our tier 1, tier 2 and, you know, get that industry recognized credential? Are we gonna be able to build on it? So maybe we do repost and, you know, maybe that company does apply for it, you know? You know, I think it kind of goes back to what Tom was talking about also.
Yeah, I kind of like having money kind of already set aside or already earmarked for things that are priorities. Instead of moving it back and forth, you know, between the general fund and the specific fund. So I guess I would just vote to keep holding that money and then reissue RFPs in the future to try to use it up.
So I'm flipping through folks, and it looks like most folks are putting the same amount for the contextualized ESOL as we spent last time. So for our vote next time, not making a real motion. I just think we could have a vote next meeting to obligate $750,000. That seems to be where the majority of folks are leaning to. And then again, William will send an RFP, folks will apply, we'll evaluate the RFPs
Yeah, I think,
for folks.
can I just build on that, Annika?
Oh, sure.
I think what is also helpful as we're thinking about releasing these RFPs, whether it's for contextualized ESOL, of course, they're giving us a new proposal. Maybe it looks very similar to last time, but they're giving us a new proposal, but we also, with the RFP, have the opportunity to tweak things a little bit. Maybe we want to make sure that X amount out of the 750 is going toward ESOL, X amount is going toward high school equivalency. We have those kinds of opportunities. So I think if, as we get closer to voting on some of these next time, I think it's good for the trust to consider, is it helpful to have a subcommittee, or what are the ways that we can really make sure we're targeting our funds? Because in the past, we had a little bit more flexibility to be like, okay, this was the proposal, we're funding it in full, there it goes. And this time around, we might have some more discussion, or there might be pieces that were like, oh, we want to fund this portion, but not this portion. So yeah, that's just a long way of saying we might want to think about subcommittees, but also I don't want that to drag out the process too far.
Appreciate you raising that, William. Are you suggesting that we would need a subcommittee between now, like over the summer, or like making one today for the timing of the grant?
I mean, I guess when we're obligating the funds, we're kind of using broad enough language that the RFP doesn't have to be 100% written at that point. But I would say, in addition to putting amounts on the spreadsheet, I encourage people to put notes as well if they have particulars, or if are you thinking down to the layer of like, do we want 750,000 to go to one organization? Do we want to make sure we're granting it to multiple organizations? I know that's not like the granular detail that maybe like that's very much in my head right now, and that might not be the way everyone else is thinking about stuff, but I just want to make sure if we're putting out more RFPs, we're doing it in a way that's really asking for what we're looking for.
Okay, that's helpful. Would anyone be interested in having a subcommittee conversation between now and the next meeting to dive into more specifics and inform the obligation vote, but also the RFP? I'm assuming the obligation vote's going to pass, so we want the RFP to be ready to hit the streets. Vicky, are you saying?
I can help with that.
Okay, cool. Tom?
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful, because this is confusing, and I think it would be the other thing I'm going to advocate again for in-person meetings, because I think when we dig into stuff like this,
yeah,
it's so much easier if we're all together in the room, and I think a meeting like this, that should be all that's on the agenda, because it's already 8 o'clock, right? And so I think when we have things like this, it should be the one item on the agenda. It's almost like it's a workshop. This is what we're going to do. Because I can remember when we first started the JATC, right? We're up at the third floor conference room, and we're out there with the easel, right? We're
And
writing
stickies.
stuff on the board.
Yeah.
And it's more interactive. And I think like hearing everybody's thoughts even now, the process is confusing. You know, so, you know, that's just my 2 cents. I've been doing this so long, you know, what I mean? And, and I think, because sometimes too, what I like is hearing, I might be saying no to something, but then if I hear your argument or somebody else's, I find that really helpful, you know, so.
Yeah, so a couple points on that. One is, so if you're interested in having a conversation with me and Vicky and anyone else who wants to join for a subcommittee level, oh boy. Silvana, are you interested about
Yep.
specifically the
Yeah,
ESOL?
I want to join that team.
Yep.
I want to be able to do the right step. It's not my money, but I want them to be spent in the correct way.
Okay, so William, we got ourselves a subcommittee. I would love for us to have an in-person meeting. William is pursuing getting trained on having a hybrid meeting.
Yeah, I can share. Yeah, I can share.
Back to me. If anyone else wants to email complain about it, I welcome you to join my advocacy.
Yes.
Yeah. I can share that I have a meeting scheduled for in a couple of weeks to get trained. There isn't like a formal training that everyone is going through yet, so I'm going to talk about what makes sense. I mean, there's a piece of it that I understand. I don't want this to get too long-winded, that, you know, different committees, their meetings might look different. Some of them might have large audiences, some of them might have smaller audiences. There's, you know, individual circumstances. So I'm gonna learn more about that and drive us closer to that reality. And again, it'll be you know, hybrid in the future, so that if there are times that it's more convenient for you not to be in person, we'll work with everyone just to make sure we're meeting what they can do.
Thanks, William. But yeah, I have reached my like breaking grouchiness point with the only Zoom, and I'm extremely ready for us to have an in-person option. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I think we are at where I was hoping we would get to with this spreadsheet activity. Thanks everybody for your flexibility and doing this on the virtual space. And then we'll have a vote at our next meeting for that first one. We'll have a subcommittee meeting in the meantime. Speaking of our next meeting is our next meeting.
If we were sticking with the second Tuesday, which is what we had before we switched this last one, then it would be the June 11th.
Folks make June 11th. Seeing a thumbs up. Seeing a hands up. Thumbs up. Hi, you, Jim and Rachel. Rachel, thumbs up virtual. Nice. Jim, thumbs up. Okay. So 6:30, June 11th will be our next meeting. And I know this feels long, but I do want to remind folks we started at 6:30, not 6. But thank you for your patience. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Motion
make that,
to adjourn.
or I'll second it.
Seconded. Okay, all in favor of adjourning. Tom Ben,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Silvana,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Rachel from the snow, Annika, yes. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 8:04.
Hey, Jim, before you leave, that picture you're looking for, I'll be sending over to you.
Okay, I found one of him fishing, but
I got a
can
good one.
you got
It's a headshot. It's a good one.
all right, cool. Thank you.
Sounds
Thanks.
great. Bye, everybody. Take care.
See ya. Good to
Thank
see
you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jen.
Thanks.